Okay, hey, lab coat agents, what is going on? Everyone, we're live. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. A few technical difficulties. You never know what Zoom is going to do. But hey, we are here. I'm Nick Baldwin. And today we've got two awesome rock stars with you talking about real estate investing. CC Underwood and David Culen. And CC, she recently just bought her first investment property for $105,000. She's going to start fixing that up. So we're going to talk about the process she went through to find the right property for the right return, and her business, her real estate business, last year, 2019, 291 transactions with, just a mere 76 million. No big. You know what I mean? And Dave Culen, Dave is the owner of a couple market centers down in Southern California. His real estate business has done 2,700 transactions and 1.7 billion in volume. That's out of control. He bought a total of 26 units in two single-family houses, and those are both worth about $7.5 million. So I'm excited for both of you to be here talking about real estate investment from the standpoint of someone who just kind of like is started getting their first one, and then someone who owns a few units and has a proof of passive income. So thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
What we're going to kind of talk about is, in a shifting market, every day we're like, oh, is the market going to change tomorrow? Who knows? With an upcoming election, what's going to happen, right? So there's all sorts of uncertainties. And I think agents need to start thinking about other streams of income. And real estate investment is truly passive income. So I want to start with Cece, because you just got into this last month. You bought your first property for $105,000. What was the process you went through to find the right property and analyzing the property to figure out whether you're going to get a good return on investment?
Well, almost like I do some of our investors, since I network with a lot of investors, we help them buy and sell. We've done their ARVs, their after repair values for them. So had a good handle on where those niche zip codes were, and I put myself up on a search on the MLS just like a buyer. Every single day I would look at it and never stress myself out when the right property came along. I actually hadn't looked at the MLS in maybe a week or two, and woke up one morning, decided to look at it. I saw a property, it was kind of ideal, and made an offer, didn't even go see it.
So you set yourself up on an MLS search. Okay, so some people would say that the MLS might not be the best place to find the best deal. So how did this one kind of just fall into your lap?
It was in the price range, and there were 7 offers on it, which I thought put me in a very unique position, being a realtor, to win that bid.
Okay, so there was $105,000, and what's the average price point in that area?
So the renovated ones are around 160,000.
Okay.
So this one was dated. It was one that I called the little old lady house.
Yeah.
Absolutely no updates at all. Red carpet, panels. How well a little old lady is going to maintain their home. They're very detailed and with their updates and maintenance.
So you're going to fix this house up and you're going to use it as a rental property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you're saying that you're going to get about $1,100 a month for it, you think? Okay. And so how much are you going to net from that?
So originally I wanted to learn more about investing. So there's what's called the BRRRR method that was kind of become a catching term. I guess it's been around for a little while, but it's just a way to buy and sell property. So originally I thought I was going to BRRRR method this property. And once I get into it, of course, what's in the book and what happens in reality were two totally different things. I had to switch gears quickly, and now I'm going to rent it and not take out increased value equity.
And so how much are you putting into this property? Because you said that it's it's a little bit dated. Is it in good condition, or is it just kind of like cosmetic type stuff?
It is in good condition, but even with cosmetics, it is still going to be anywhere from $15,000 to $17,000.
Between $15,000 and $17,000, you said? So that still puts you like well under, the price point in the neighborhood anyway. So it's still still a good deal there. That's awesome. And so when does that renovation start?
It started last week.
Oh, it started last week. Are you super pumped?
I'm pretty pumped. So it did need new plumbing. It's a 1940s house.
Okay.
The floor joists weren't, it was an addition, so we ran into that. Had to readjust the flooring, cool stuff. So I'm learning a lot going through the process.
So when's your next purchase going to be? Because now you probably you got the bug, right?
Well, because in this whole BRRRR method, it was, hey, you buy the property, you renovate it, so it raises the value, then you refinance it, so you're taking the increased equity out of the property and using that again to go buy another one. Well, in reality, all the lenders that I spoke to said, no, you have to hold this house for 6 months before you could do that. You can't just Book didn't tell me that after I bought it. So luckily we had to come up with some creative financing that allowed me to still take 80% of my purchase price value out so that in the next 30 days, I'll have that money and could go buy another one.
So Dave, I'm going to get to you in a second, so don't worry, but you look great. Don't worry. You look great. So I was,
Thanks, Nick.
So, no problem. So are you going to manage this property yourself, or are you going to get a property manager to help you with this?
Always.
Okay, and so what's that cost you? About like 10% of the monthly rent, something around that?
10%. Mm-hmm.
So it's a good deal to just have nothing to do with the tenant and just have them on call to deal with anything along the any repairs that need to get done. Awesome. So Dave, so you own a building and then a couple 2-family homes, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you own an apartment building. So is that what it is? An apartment building?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's right. Apartment building, and then one of the units I mentioned, there's a triplex. So there's a single family house in the front, and then there's units in the back, and then the other one is a single family. And the single family sounds very similar to CC's story. After we bought one at the height of the market in 2008 and lost it, I took a very conservative approach in buying in that single family home. And that was back in 2014, and bought it, lived in it. I wanted to keep the risk very low. It was an inexpensive home relative to the market. We bought it for $283. The market average was probably in the $500,000 range. And just like Cece mentioned, it was a grandma's house. She passed away. The kids were inheriting it. They lived in different states. They didn't want to renovate it and go through that hassle. They just wanted to liquidate and get their cash. So we got a really good deal on the property and did the renovations, increased the value, lived in it until we could put enough cash together to keep that property and move to property B, let's say. And property B ended up being that triplex. And then the multifamily property we bought after that with a partner.
Okay, so you lived in this house for a little while at first. You bought it for yourself.
That's right. I would say probably 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you bought it for yourself, but you always had the intention of eventually flipping it and renting it out?
Yep, that's right. And my wife is a property manager, and so that took a lot of pressure off of me. So that's part of my factor when I said I wanted to take all the risk out of it, because I had clients in the past when I was selling houses that would read the book and go out and buy, and then they realized, you know what, I'm not cut out for this investing and managing the property. And in some cases, it was such a burden for them, they ended up selling those properties down the road.
So your wife's the property manager. So at 2 a.m. when a pipe bursts, you're just like, honey, that's you.
Yeah, that's right. I don't even know if I hear the phone ring.
That's you, honey. Go ahead, go for it. I got a big day tomorrow. Right. All right, so talk to me about the apartment building, because that's, I think that's like a real goal for a lot of people, right? So you're starting off small, you're holding on to that property, and then you go for the juggernaut, like the building with the rental units. What are you looking for? Like, what's the first step to going to that next level? And how do you find apartment buildings for sale? Like, they're not on the MLS. So what's the process there?
Okay, well, the first thing was I think about is the reason why I wanted the apartment building to begin with. And so basically, you know, you read those comparisons, and it's kind of like a stock market analogy. And if I have $100,000 in the stock market and the market goes up 10%, I've made 10 grand. And so I was trying to figure out how can I take down the biggest property and go along for the ride in terms of that upside or that percentage in appreciation, or add value to it and capture both. And so a couple things you're asking. So number one, you know, and a lot of books will tell you this, it's about your network. So I have a network. I have real estate brokers that I'm friends with, I know, or work at the office. And so I was able to, through that relationship, find an off-market deal. One of the rules I look at is knowing the market really well and buying in an emerging market, and then also being able to buy what's called a value add to some people. So if you just look at the basic equation of buying an apartment building, and the value is what they call a cap rate, and that's what the market's trading for, and that's how value can be determined based on its net operating income. If I look at a property, let's say the cap rate was 10, and it kicks off $100,000 a year in net operating income, then the current value would be $1 million. So if I look at that and I say, you know what, that property in this particular case, the rents I think were about $895. The real market, if the property were rehabilitated, would be about $1,500. So we knew that we could create our own value and not really so much rely on what the market's doing. And that sort of touches on your earlier question, you know, what about how are we buying in today's market? So if I can create my own value regardless of what the market's doing, that's one way to do it. So in my math analogy there, if I could increase the net operating income from $100,000 a year to $150,000 a year, now the property is worth $1.5 million. So now all I have to know is how much is it going to cost me to add that value? And that again would then go to, you know, who's your network, and do you have contractor relationships, and so on and so forth. And so I certainly wasn't the first guy in the, you know, to operate quickly. I spent a lot of time doing light remodeling and renovations in either the brokerage offices or elsewhere to learn that. My mother-in-law is a general contractor, and my wife is very good with design. So I have a lot of help as it relates to that. So it mitigated a lot of risk for me, I would say. And so we were able to buy that property for about $3.2 million. And actually a couple of weeks ago, we just sold it for about 4.4.
Oh, good.
So we no longer own it.
So you sold, oh, nice. Good job. Good job. So when you initially bought that, was it occupied? Like all the units, or did
Yes.
you have to, which is also a huge
Yes.
one. And so
Correct.
how do you deal with, okay, so the building's occupied, and, you know, the rents, you know, people have leases, right? So you have to honor those leases. And then if the, you know, to make the numbers hopefully make a little bit more sense, when those leases come up, what do? Do you try to, you can raise the rent a little bit, or do you cancel the lease? What's the process with that?
Well, I think you'll want answers to all those questions going in, but then you'll also want to have some reserves and the ability to weather a storm, let's say. So I know that gets talked about on a lot of other podcasts I listen to as it relates to real estate agents and their sales business. Make sure you have enough money in the bank to sustain yourself for 4 months, 6 months. So I think being very conservative there is important. So even if you could qualify for a larger property, maybe that's not the best idea. To my earlier point with the single family home I bought, I could have afforded to buy something larger than 283, but I wanted to make sure that the mortgage payment almost felt like a cell phone bill, in the sense that I don't pay too much attention to the cell phone bill, and it just gets paid, and it's not going to stress me out. And so I think that's important, because everything everything I experienced in downturns where people got into trouble with real estate investing is they were just over leveraged. And so if something changed in the household, one person lost a job or their income went down, it's typical when the economy is not in good shape. And so therefore, then they're forced to sell the property. And again, like a stock, if it goes down in value and you don't sell it and it goes back up, you're okay. But if it goes down and you're forced to sell, that's when you lose money. So I just didn't want that to happen.
Gotcha. So, I'm sorry, go ahead. And can I say something else?
Well, I was saying the other thing you can do is what I did there is to took on a majority partner. And so that way I didn't have to wait for another 10 years to buy something of that size. And
I liked the point you made before about the relationships, like with the contractors or the builders or, that type of thing, where these guys are in these buildings all the time. They're kind of, in the know. They might hear of a landlord or an owner of a building that's looking to sell. That's a really smart piece of advice for people. Like, get a network of great builders and contractors who are constantly going to these buildings, or get to know landlords specifically, right? Like, because I'm sure you have a landlord, or do you just have a property, or you had a property manager for that building? Did you have someone that lived there as a landlord?
They didn't live there. The prior owner did. And so we had that relationship as a bridge, and then we ended up hiring a property manager, which had a deep relationship with the broker, who's, has huge market share in that local area, and owned and also had buildings, including on the same street. So it felt very comfortable. And I would say, to your point, at a minimum, the experienced team should include a broker, an attorney, a lender, a property manager, and a contractor.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I want to talk a little bit about wholesalers, because there's some agents in my office that they do wholesales and they partner up with specific agents to find them the best deals. And that might be some sort of route that Cece might want to go for her next purchase, like hook up with some wholesalers, who because a lot of the great deals aren't on the MLS. I know that. At least I know that much. So there's an agent in my office. I wanted to get her on the webinar, but she's on vacation. She just really got into flipping last year. I think she flipped like 3 or 4 homes, and I think she net like $150,000 or $200,000, which is great. And I think she hooked up with a couple of wholesalers. So we talk about how, and the thing is, she got into a neighborhood that now is getting very difficult to find a great deal in, because once the investors come in, they start to they figure it out, right? Like, this is the neighborhood, and then it only lasts, like, that hot moment only lasts for a little while. So how would someone hook up with a wholesaler, and how could that potentially help them find a great deal?
I mean, like you said, it's networking. It's all about your network. Here, there is a real estate investor group that is very large. There's some smaller pocket investor groups, and all the wholesalers. I mean, I literally asked one day inside that Facebook group, who are the wholesalers? Can I get on your list? Some of them sent me links for me to sign up. Some had their individual websites. They're fantastic, and they give their idea of cost in, which again, you need to know, I think, experience going in some renovated homes, being around contractors, so that you can verify what their estimated cost of rehab, make sure that matches what you believe it to, an estimated cost to renovate a kitchen, a bathroom. So know those kind of numbers, and the ARV. I mean, they're going to put their own numbers. Don't take it for face value. Trust and verify.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Dave, what about you? What kind of like networking groups or, wholesale groups, what would you recommend for an agent who's just trying to get into this? Like, where would they go to meet someone who could potentially find them a great deal like that? Because, they're not on the MLS, so, and they go quick. You got to know the right people.
Yeah, I have no experience with wholesalers, but now that you guys are mentioning it, I think it's a matter of first intention, and setting that intention in your mind. And like they say, you get what you focus on, and all of a sudden you start hearing conversations a little differently when you're out and about. But I would say, I would rely heavily on the agent network, simply because there's lots of agents out there. They're in the field. That's their job. And many of them are listening for the listing, not necessarily the investment. And the ones that are listening for the investment, in a lot of cases, haven't yet bought a property necessarily, and they're looking to do what we're talking about today. And so there's ways to structure some incentives for them to do that. Obviously getting the listing, and if you're a flipper, giving them the commission on the listing on the backside, and or possibly an equity piece of the deal. Maybe they put their commission in as a percentage of the overall acquisition, and they own a piece of the property. Mm-hmm. But CC's right, and you're both right. The markets, when there's a hot market and investors come in, it prices go up at the same time. It gets saturated, and the returns get smaller.
So I've heard that when people are looking for properties, like I've heard that if you need to, you should only flip a home and then resell it. Like if you need the money right now, like need right now money, right? Otherwise you should hold on to it and use it as passive income. Would you agree with that? Or because I know there's successful people that they don't want to hold on to the properties. They just want to find one, renovate it, flip it, sell it, and move on to the next. What's your take on which one is more effective, and more and has a better, return or a better long-term business model? Either one of you, doesn't matter which one,
I think it's two different things. The reasons why someone flips a home could be first and foremost to build up their capital. They have to flip to build that capital. They need hard money to get started so they can build their own, so that they can use cash. Mm-hmm. It could be, they want to be the next Joanna Gaines. Who knows? They just really intentionally love to do that, and maybe they have a real estate partner that's also like a great marketing partnership where you're flipping homes and selling homes together. And I mean, for myself, I can just speak to, it's not necessarily about cash flow. It's about building wealth and time. I don't have time to manage a flip. My business is selling real estate, not flipping it. So I don't have a whole production crew that I can keep employed. They have jobs, in Florida, there's land, they have plenty of jobs. They're going to go where the money is. So I can do one at a time. And for me, that works out just fine to build wealth and equity, not necessarily in flipping or cash flow right now.
Good. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. Dave, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I heard something a long time ago that stuck in my head, which is, in Southern California, if you talk to enough people and they have purchased properties that they once owned and maybe sold 10 or 20 years ago, most of them regret selling that property. So I guess it would depend on the performance of the property and what CC's saying. Are you in this because you're trying to generate cash flow or build wealth? And it depends on your needs, I would say. So when I was buying properties, I was generating cash flow outside those properties so I could afford to hold them. And that was maybe more of a personal preference. And then maybe to take it up a notch, I've talked to quite a few people that started in one area and then migrated to another area. For example, they bought single family homes, and then they realized that the management of that was a little bit easier if they had all those units in one building. So they went into apartment buildings, and then they realized that's kind of a job because there's a lot of management at that level. And then they went into triple net and started buying commercial, where they had long-term leases. And then when the light bulb or the toilet didn't work, as to your earlier point, then that fell on the tenant and not the landlord. And so the management responsibility was less. Mm-hmm. And that's something I would be interested in exploring personally. Yeah, and even hotels.
Go into building. They would go in from flipping homes into building, creating that construction development division.
Yep, there you go.
I did property management. Actually, I had a property management company when I was in 2008 for about 5 years when the market was just, completely in the toilet. And, it was good because it was residential single family homes. Like I was living in northern New Jersey. And so there was a lot of $1 million plus homes that weren't selling. And so these things were renting for like $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And I mean, to California standards, it's pennies, right, David? I mean, those houses are, $5,000 a month is nothing. But
but on a percentage return, that's very interesting. I'm talking to some people, including Jeff Cohn and someone in Florida and looking at doing something out of state because the percentage is higher. So here we're buying equity, and there we could be buying cash flow.
Yeah. So in northern New Jersey, when you have these big, beautiful 5,000-6,000 square foot, 200-year-old Victorian homes, like they weren't selling because in 2008 to 2012, there just wasn't a market for it. And I was managing probably, I would say, about 15 properties, and 10% of the monthly rent of $5,000 home. It was a good cash flow for me, taking advantage of a market where people couldn't sell those homes and were renting them out, and they needed someone like me. So property management companies, I just think that like they're always like, I'm glad that I have that knowledge now, because if the market ever completely tanks again, I have the knowledge and the know-how to kind of go back into something like that. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important as real estate agents to have expertise in different areas of the industry, like whether it be investing, whether it be property management, because you never know. The agents that survive those types of markets are the ones that have other tricks in their pocket, and they understand, how different aspects of the industry work. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I absolutely. And just by you choosing to do that, you're making me think of a couple points. One is, and by the way, I did use hard money on those first two acquisitions, and I know my behavior well enough that if I take on something and I'm in the deal, I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
Otherwise, it would just be real easy to sit on the sideline. And the other thing that's typical about good salesperson's behavior is we overspend and don't save. So what I needed was forced learning. I needed to be in the deal, and I needed a model that created forced savings. And then just by doing that over time, let's call it a few years, once you start seeing the value of that in your bank account and seeing that asset grow, then it becomes exciting. People always talk about motivation, and motivation comes after the result. So you sort of have to buy your time and let the motivation manifest, and then you'll want to continue to do it. So in your case, you developed a skill set which creates security and comfort for you, because if something did hit the fan, then you could go off and do that, and you have confidence in doing such.
Yeah, when the tenant calls me and says when the light isn't working, and I go over there and I'm like, well, that's because you didn't change the light bulb. Or they're like, the light bulb is out. I'm like, good story. Go to the store and buy one, but that's not in my lease. It's not in my lease. I have to buy light bulbs. Listen, there's a certain amount of money where you can make where those requests you're able to tolerate. But but anyway, yeah. So I'm in Michigan, and I'm about 45 minutes north of Detroit, and there's a lot of great towns that are seeing a resurgence. Investors are coming in. Even areas of Detroit are being fixed up, and so that's one of my goals for this year is to get my first investment property. I'm on the fence about whether I would want to rent it out or I'd want to flip and sell it. I don't know. I feel like I want to flip it and sell it and make a bunch of cash and move on to the next one. I think that's kind of like my personality. I don't know, but who knows? Cece, your next one, is it going to be a rental, or are you gonna do a buy and flip and sell it? What do you think you're going to do? Build a portfolio?
Yeah, I want to build a portfolio and have the rent. Say my goal isn't necessarily cash flow, it's building wealth through equity in the home. So just have that mortgage, pay it down. And what was cool, they talk about in that book about kind of that delayed gratification. It's not just, hey, I'm going to save up 20%. It took me years, you know, that painful years and years to save up $100,000, to actually save it away, to have that buying power. Because, you know, a lot of times in multiple offers, they're going to go for cash. And that's part of it. And also using the realtor relationship of, there were 7 offers on this property, and the agent said, you know, hey, there is, you know, it's 5,000, someone is doing $5,000 more, it's finance, can you do it? Just having those great relationships to tell you what needs to happen to get the deal done, and saying, okay, well, I'll do that. I need to close before the end of the year. I want to close this in December, and it's the holidays, it's Christmas, so your seller, we can do a post-occupancy. She can get her cash now. She can stay in the home for 20 days after. So just being able to rework a deal the way you hope so many other people would, do whatever it takes to get the deal done. And you know what? She was out. I got the keys, changed the locks, and I got a property because of my realtor relationship. Her exact words were, I would want you to have this, right? I'd rather work with you. And that's pretty powerful, regardless if it's an investor, a wholesaler. When you have that integrity and that, you know, professionalism, people know you as someone who's going to get it done. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. It can go a really long way. So I will lean on them for my next property.
Awesome. I love that. So just having a good reputation in the area and making good relationships with agents. So you paid for this house cash?
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, you know, I mean, listen, it's not easy to save up that money. It's just not. I mean, in northern New Jersey, even a down payment of 20%, it could be like $60,000, $70,000. I mean, it's just like, it's not easy to save that money. So good for you for doing both of those things.
That's one way to take all the risk out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
CC, what did they tell you back to the lending because you mentioned something earlier, and I think that's a very important point where in the model in a lot of those books, it says buy property A, wait 5 years, take 20% equity out, buy property B, right? And you paid cash for it. What kind of numbers were you being told based on debt to income and the value of that property? How much cash can you pull out of that property once that time limit has evaporated? Did you ever get a number?
Yeah, I can pull 80%, which is, you know, at the end of renovations, I'm looking at properties that will hold 20 to 25% equity after I'm done. That is my standard. So I always say I do go by the numbers. But what I was told was after you buy it, everyone was saying, well, you just refinance afterwards. You just pull the money out of the ARV. So at first I thought I was going to be able to pull 80% of the 165 out, or that 170 number. But in reality, the lender said, no, you have to hold it for 6 months. And that wasn't a time factor that I was willing to wait on. So just talking to different lenders, there was something called delayed financing, where essentially I use the cash to get the property, and then I pull 80% of the purchase price out. So I can do that 30 days later. I mean, I started that the day after we closed. In 30 days, I can pull the 80 grand out, and I'll put that into another property so I can acquire them faster.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good. And then also, since you do sell 200 and let's call it 300 houses a year, I'm going to give you another 9 because it's so close.
Yeah, hey,
you're selling that many.
Hey, Cece, whatever happened to the other 9?
That painful part. Why couldn't you do 300?
I mean, does somebody need to get fired over there? What's going on?
No, that was a big jump for us anyway.
I'm just teasing you. It's like I'm dating myself. That's like the Encyclopedia Britannica commercial where the guy's like, I got an A-. Why not an A+? I don't know. Whatever. Totally dating myself. Encyclopedias are books that have information, and now we don't have those on Google. All right. So, yeah. 291 homes. Let's just veer. Yeah. Did you want to veer off to that for a second?
I wanted to ask her, since she must have an amazing marketing machine in place to get to sell that many homes to begin with, is there something that she could add or tweak to her existing marketing that would help her uncover more investment deals?
There likely is. I think it goes back to, you know, what you were saying before. It's that focus. It's, okay, yes, you know, do I stop what I'm doing now to go build the investment? I really don't want to take my eyes and focus off what the real income, you know, what is it that I can do to get the money and the profit to do these other side income producing activities. I can't lose the real estate. That is my bread and butter. That is, you know, that's the business that has employees and agents, and nothing is affected. I'm the only one that's affected by rentals. Everyone is affected by my team. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping a focus. And yes, if we want to add in a cash offer, you know, we've integrated cash offers by partnering with Open Door. And we have our investors. In a lot of cases, Open Door offers more money. For our local investors, they tend to need it at a bigger discount because of their actual, they have real numbers, real costs that they need to stay in, but they're always there. And that's where I think understanding which each investor or real estate agent needs, that's a nice cohesive partnership. And then if my team is out and they're at a listing appointment that says, hey, this might be something that our team members might be interested in. We have another agent on our team that has purchased 3 of our listings, going out to the listing appointment, hearing the seller's story, and they themselves did it that way. So lots of opportunities.
I love hearing, I could listen to Cece drop knowledge bombs all day long. Like that video you did yesterday about your ego versus we go, that was like freaking brilliant. I watch it now, like I texted her, I'm like, that video was fire. Because Cece's like a bold business coach, so she's got all the knowledge bombs up there in her head.
Yeah.
So you would never know, because every picture she's like that. She's like, what's up? But then she's like, you know, just crushes the nuggets. The nuggets are just one after the other. Yeah, anyway, so we're going to wrap this up. Guys, let's just go back to, you know, let's just pretend everyone on this webinar is watching has never flipped a home. Just give us one really good takeaway to look for our first really great investment property that's going to bring us, you know, a good return every month. What should we be doing? One thing.
All right, so my one thing would be to write out, just like a business plan in your business, write out exactly what you're looking for, the amount of money you have to buy it, what's your max rehab cost, and the equity you expect to give. And if the property doesn't match what you're looking for, don't buy it.
Makes perfect sense. Dave?
I would say to maximize the opportunity, consider buying a property that you can also live in it. So maybe it's a fourplex. You live in one of the units, which allows you to qualify for owner-occupied financing with little money down while capturing a larger asset value.
That's a really good point. So buying like a multifamily home, you know, even if it's just a 2 or a 3 family, right? Like offsetting, you know, the property taxes, you know, that type of stuff, because you can put what you would normally pay in property taxes aside and then potentially purchase, you know, another residential property with that. That's a really good point. I like that piece of advice. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Sometimes we just overthink things.
Other people. No.
What, CC? Yeah, have other people pay your mortgage. I love it.
That's right.
That'd be good on a t-shirt. All right, guys, listen, thank you for being here. I love it. Lots of great things to think about. I think people need to go and rewatch this. There's a lot of great nuggets. So appreciate CC and Dave being here today. And yeah, have a great day, guys. Be productive, and we'll talk soon.
You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.